Okay, so today's lesson is understanding zone 2, and then which is you're dealing with primarily building the takeaway. I'm going to give you 2 dimensions of that, down the line and face on, and how that will work up into building your swing. So let's make sure that the ball is in there. See it? You can. There we go. Yeah, we can see it. All right, good. So if I was practicing, I've got here a 5-iron, but if I was practicing here, what I would be doing is with the takeaway, as I set up here, I've got the shaft on the side of the shaft, or middle of the shaft on this table, which is a straight line. As you'll see, as I take that back, sun's getting me a little bit. As I take that back, that's a straight line, but you see that the head is going slightly inside, even though that this is, so if the head was going straight back, it would look like this, so the shaft would be off plane. So when I talk about the takeaway here, we don't want any roll, so we don't want, you can see the face, I don't want the face to roll, I don't want the shaft to go up, I don't want the shaft to go back here. So what I'm looking for in the zone 2 is that you take the club, let me get this pointed right at the ball so you can see. So I want this club to be pointed right, this club to go straight back, and I want it to go wide as I turn my right hip back without changing posture. So I want in a zone 2, as I'm building my swing, this to ride along to here, where the club is uncocked. Okay, so I'm going to turn back, and then that's where I'd float to here. So it'd be zone 2 would be somewhere right in here, then I'd float and hit. Zone 3 where it's where the club's going to get behind the hand slightly, just like this, and here, and that's the difference. The main reason why I'm showing you this is because, one, is if I'm on this table and I'm training, you'll see that it doesn't make sense to twist my body around, to lift the club up in the air, any of those crazy things. Really, all I'm trying to do is just really light with my hands and turn this all the way and feel it gently slide across the rail, which is, you'll see, as we know, is the club head's inside the ball here, as you can see, and then as it strikes the ball, as you can see here, then it goes back to the left without me. I'm not pulling the club to the left, the side of the shaft staying on a straight line here. If I was to take the side of the shaft and push off plane would be that. Off plane would be this. So it's left. So what you're trying to do in zone 2, when you do this correctly, is we're doing it, you would just be building your swing just like this, you can see. That's all zone 2 is. Okay? Zone 3 would look like this. You can see it's a very small zone 3. So, zone 2 and zone 3, in my opinion, are the ones you want to take a 60-degree with and hit most of your shots to develop your swing, because when you do this, most people will not move their right side. They just go like this, or they over twist. They don't have bad posture here. They're maybe too narrow. They're practicing like this. You know, when you do my zone 2, I want you to be wide. You can see I have a wide takeaway here, zone 2, and like that. And how far? Probably the biggest mistake that I see when players are trying to develop their swing. This is a really efficient way to build your swing without rebuilding your swing. It just kind of makes sense, because if you go zone 2, like we talked about here, you go zone 3, and you go zone 4 right up the chain, you can see you're developing a plane that's going to be in definitely a gray area. If you get here early and you roll the face open, if you twist the face down, if you twist the body around, and you break zone 2, this zone 2, if you have a bad zone 2 or takeaway, then you're going to be compensating all over the yard, and you just don't have the time to do that. So we want to make this really efficient, so you can really move forward in your training and be able to work up the scale. Now, we have 2 things we talk about: zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Zone 1, 2, and 3, or especially 2 and 3, are where your primary training should be. But even better than thinking of zones, a lot of time is thinking of yardage. On a zone 1, if you're just adding, because zone 1 there is no takeaway. Zone 1 it's just a little bit of wrist like this. So the ball with a 60 degree or 56 would only go 3 yards. One of the problems we have with the zones is, and it was my fault, is we don't clarify like the yardages very well. And so what I found to work much better than trying to think of zones is to think of yardages. So in zone 2, if you do this right and what we're doing, that's a little zone 3. So zone 2 would look like this. That ball with a 56 degree is going to go no more than 10 yards. And if you don't know what 10 yards is, you should walk it, because it's going to be less than you think. 3 big steps for the most part. It's only going to fly 10 yards. A zone 3, a short zone 3, which would look, it's just barely longer than, that's just barely longer than the zone 2. And that's what it should be. This right here, that ball is only going to fly maybe 15 yards max. Okay, we don't want it to fly 20, 30, 40, 50. And that's one of the things I see players do is they're trying to hit zone 3s. One, they're way too long cocking their wrist, and they're trying to blast it up out here to the green, and they're not building anything. A zone 3 should look like this. About 15 yards max. All right? And if you do that, this is what you're doing. Every time you hit a shot like that, you're building this, the takeaway and how you're moving the club along the line. You're building all this, even though you're only working to here. You're also coordinating your right side. If you watch here, it's not with the arms. It's not with the head here. It's with this whole back side. Okay, if you watch a big wide takeaway, you're building that finally to coordinate. You're also sinking in transition and developing transition and impact. So you're developing all these things in a short zone.